That's 2 weeks with the growling. I don't know if I'm going to keep this up, but we'll see. We'll see. It's John Wood here, the founder of Rage Heart. I'd like to welcome you as a beast, as an animal of some kind. Hopefully not an insect. That would be a bit strange. Maybe a butterfly. That'd be pretty fun. Or a tiger, whatever you want to be. As we begin, dropping in, as always, feeling that ground beneath you, looking around the room that you're in. In the nervous system world, we call this orienting to the environment, orienting to the safety in the environment. It's a big part of this work. Noticing your breath and just taking a moment, really, to come into now, to come into the body, right? Not just to silence the mind necessarily, but to actually feel the body instead of staying in the mind. Over the weekend, I'm just fresh out of a couple of ayahuasca ceremonies here in the sacred valley of Peru. And my intention this time was, it's funny how it keeps evolving and changing. You know, there's all these different ways of working with these plants. But the thing that popped into my head, I think the week or two beforehand, of what I wanted to work on this time was gratitude. And the reason for that is I've had a few dreams actually, since arriving here in Peru. And I'm starting to diet with some of these plants. And this dream that I've had, it's got to be 2 or 3 times now. I'm usually with someone from here in the valley, someone I'm working with, and I end up telling them how thankful I am, how grateful I am to be here, to be doing this work, to be working with the plants, to be doing Rage Heart, to be living the life that I'm living. And I'm so grateful in these dreams that I am sobbing. I've never, in my day-to-day waking life, I've never felt gratitude to this degree. And in the dreams, it's like there's gratitude and then there's gratitude. And I feel like what it is the plants are kind of showing me, as crazy as that sounds, the plants are showing me. But it's almost like these plants kind of are trying to say, look, you know, like I said, there's gratitude, you know, gratitude lists and that's great and everything and cool. But there's like levels to this, and you can go a lot further and deeper into gratitude. And so with that in mind, I brought that as my intention to the weekend. So it's early days. It's only been 3 or 4 days since the weekend when I'm recording this. But I've got some homework from the maestro that I'm working with, and I can already feel like with this work with the plants, even with the nervous system stuff, it can be quite subtle, where it's not these massive changes that happen overnight. You know, the dreams might have been very intense, but day to day, you know, opening up these pathways, these doorways to these like new ways of being, in my experience, takes time. So, but already I can feel there's like, it's a bit easier to rest in gratitude, not just for the good things, but for everything. So anyway, that's what I've been doing this weekend. I hope you've been up to something fun too. In today's episode of the Rage Heart podcast. So just a heads up. So in episode 1, I said I was going to call this the Unleash the Beast podcast. And I thought that was it. But then I went away. I thought about it. I'm like, it's just not doing it for me. I like the idea, but as a title for a podcast, it just feels too normal, too expected. Everyone, you know, you expect me to say something of why it's really cool, to sell you on some cool benefit in the title, like Unleash the Beast. So to me, it just started to feel a bit lame. So I thought I was going to go with something funny, like The Morning Wood Show, The Morning Wood Podcast, of course, using my surname, John Wood. So having a pun there to be a bit cheeky, but then there's a bunch of podcasts called The Morning Wood, so that's not going to work. There's also, I was going to do The Raging Wood, that's right. But the feedback with that wasn't as good as it was with The Morning Wood. People love The Morning Wood Show, but The Raging Wood was a bit more like, it's a little bit aggressive. It's like The Morning Wood, but just a bit too far. So that wasn't really resonating. And then someone else told me something very interesting. They brought something to my attention, which was that, say, Google and Amazon, they don't have different brands. It's one brand, and they have different sort of divisions, you could say. So we've got Google Maps, Google News, Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Sheets, right? Or you've got Amazon, the store, I suppose, Amazon, the store, Amazon Kindle, Amazon Music, Amazon Web Services. And so they have the same brand, and then they have these things that fall under that brand. And so that's the idea, the plan. What I'm going to do with Raychart is the Raychart newsletter, Raychart Academy for the paid course, Raychart podcast, which is what you're listening to. Maybe one day we'll have Raychart robots and even Raychart butt plugs. Who knows? Anyway, so for today's interview on the Raychart podcast, that's the name I decided to go with, Raychart. I'm talking to my cousin, Jack McIntyre, and his journey. We're going to talk about his journey from being depressed and on antidepressants and in some ways going off the rails in his own way to a hell of a lot happier, more fulfilled, and really doing the work that he wants to do in the world, which is something that I find a lot of people want. Everyone's searching for a sense of purpose and meaning. And Jack seems to have, he's a lot clearer on that. He's very much, he feels like he's in the space that he wants to be in right now. And we're also going to talk about how psychedelics and nervous system work, which is what Raychart's all about, how that's helped him along in his journey. Okay, so stay tuned for that in roughly 73 seconds. Today's Beast of the Week, I'm going to point out or highlight Logan Thompson. Logan is a Raychart Academy subscriber. He is going through the training at the moment, but I remember when I first told him one of the techniques for working with the nervous system, not everyone applies it, not everyone sort of gets it straight away, but Logan almost immediately, I think within probably a few hours, he emailed me back to say, that was harder than I expected, but once I got used to it, it silenced my mind like never before. That's a technique, one of the main techniques I teach inside the Raychart Academy. And actually, if you sign up for the Daily Rage at raychart.co and you reply to the welcome email, the first email in the newsletter, I will even share that technique with you. So congrats to Logan for being the Beast of the Week and for taking that technique and using it. And as far as reviews goes, I've got a review from Chell E on the Daily Rage. She says the Daily Rage is great. It's clear, crazy, raw, and real. The techniques are perfect. It's like lucid dreaming while awake. So the Beastly Reviews is really meant for podcast reviews, but this being a new podcast, there are no podcast reviews to talk about. So I'm taking nice things that people have said about Raychart, about the techniques, about what I'm doing, and using them in the meantime. So if you enjoy today's show, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, you enjoy the bad jokes, then head over to Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, and leave me a review of some kind. Hopefully it's 5 stars. That'd be great. And if it is 5 stars, I'll read it out on the show. Maybe if it's 1 star, if it's like a really horrible 1-star review, I'd probably read it out on the show as well, just because it'll be funny, especially if it's like written by a troll or something like that. But yeah, 5 stars and 1 stars. Sorry, give me a 5-star review or a 1-star review, and I'll read it out on the show. I can mention your name if you have somewhere that you want me to, like a website or something like that to mention to. I can do that for you as well. So there we go. That's the intro done. Hopefully we'll get a little bit quicker in the future. We're still getting the hang of this. But anyway, let's rock and roll. All right, it's John Wood here, the founder of Raychart. I'm here with my good friend and cousin, Jack McIntyre. And I thought I'd get him on so we could talk about somatics and the nervous system and how to work with all that stored survival stress, because he's got a pretty cool story. And I've been able to witness it, most of it, and it's been pretty fucking cool to watch. So I got Jack here to talk about what happened for him, how it benefited him, how it helped him. So if you're curious about it, wanting to learn more, it's a good place to begin, and you can find out and see if it's right for you. So, what's up, Jack?
Hey, how you going?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm good.
It's your first podcast, right?
Roll. First podcast.
Yeah. Popping the cherry.
Making history today.
Pretty much. That's the way to live, right? Make history every single day of your life.
Absolutely.
Ideally. I don't know how much washing dishes and cooking food's making history, though. It's making my history.
That's all right.
Anyway, so I know all about you, of course. We know all about each other, but let's talk about, we'll get into the somatics in a second. Maybe tell people a bit about who you are. Who's Jack at the moment? And what do you do? Tell us a bit about you.
Who's Jack? Well,
Other than just saying pure consciousness, I know you're into the non-duality stuff, so like, let's not get too philosophical with it. We don't have all day.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try and put it in a nutshell. So yeah, my name's Jack. I'm 32. I live in Australia. I was born in Sydney, born in Cronulla on the beach. Grew up sort of at the beach, surfing, all that sort of stuff. Had a lot of different jobs. I've done bar work, construction, sales, retail, telemarketing, just, all the jobs you can do without qualifications, basically. And then I ended up doing 4 years in the army, went overseas to the Middle East, and now I'm working in mental health in Australia, doing as a support worker in the drug and alcohol sector. So essentially working at a rehab, which is great. I love it. So that's kind of bringing you up to speed in about 1 minute.
Nice, wrapped in a nutshell too. I see that. What kind of nut is it? Are we talking like an almond nut or a walnut? Or
probably a macadamia, I think. They're the best.
Okay. I was hoping you wouldn't say like a bull nut.
A bull nut? I don't even know what a bull nut is.
Well, it's the nut, one nut of a bull.
Oh, okay. The singular bull testicle.
Well, yeah, exactly, right? I didn't want to say testicle, but but that it's a joke. Yeah. Maybe not a very good one, but yeah, I try sometimes. So you kind of, I'm a little bit tired. I had a big day yesterday, as you know. We've been talking for a while, and my brain may be doing zigzags tonight. But is what it is. So you got this job. So you kind of life right at the moment. Would you say it's like life's pretty good at the moment, right? You've kind of got the job you wanted, working exactly kind of where you want to be. It's not where you want to be forever, but right now it's kind of it for you, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I've sort of been working towards this for the last few years. I had a period of time when I got out of the army where I didn't really know what I wanted to do, was pretty kind of confused and didn't really know what my purpose was and that sort of thing, and had to do a lot of deep reflection and kind of soul searching, I guess, and realized that I wanted to help people in some kind of way. And at first I thought that was maybe through doing physiotherapy. So I did my first year of physiotherapy at uni, and I left with a diploma of health science. But I kind of figured some way through that process that I actually wanted to work more with human behavior and mental health, and it just appealed to me and called to me a bit more. So then I went and did some studies in youth work and drug and alcohol, and now I'm working at a drug and alcohol center in Australia, and my sort of day-to-day job is pretty varied, but it's just great being able to interact with people and, meet people from all walks of life and hear their story. And it's been a really good experience for me. I don't know if it's what I'll do forever, but I'll definitely probably be working in the kind of mental health, community services sector moving forward into the future. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. But it wasn't, I mean, that's an interesting point you bring up, like the past, the army. Like, what was life like? Because you come a long way, like, especially with what you're doing lately and, the nervous system stuff. But let's like rewind back to, I don't know where an appropriate point is, because even before the army, like it's like you were, my understanding is, if I remember correctly, like you've been searching for a while before the army. The army was like one step on that path to kind of figure out like wanting to do something. So like what was sort of going on for you before? Like what was motivating you to kind of search? What was going on inside you or in your sort of day-to-day experience that was driving that search?
Well, I think I've always kind of had that sort of element of just my personality. I've always been a bit of a seeker or a searcher. Not even really sure what I was searching for a lot of the time, I think. Probably like most of us, to avoid pain and seek pleasure. But like, I don't know, growing up, I always thought that I wanted to be a rock star and, play in bands and do that whole sort of thing. And that, didn't really pan out the way I thought it would. then I had a bunch of different jobs, and I thought that was maybe going to be the answer, like maybe being a carpenter or building and that sort of stuff. And that didn't really give me the fulfillment that I was looking for. And then I, decided, well, maybe I'll join the army. And that, to be honest, was really a big catalyst for me, like probably the best thing I ever did, best decision I ever made. But it was a bit of a double-edged sword, that brought its own challenges and struggles, both when I was in and then when I left. But yeah, I think I've always just been trying to find myself and trying to find out who I am, and try and work through some of the issues that I had, different traumas and just shit that accumulates from just being alive, being a human.
Yeah. Oh, how was this? I mean, if you're up for sharing it, like when you say traumas, we don't have to go into the details of what they were, but how were they like affecting your life? What were they, stopping you from doing? How were you feeling day to day that was making it difficult? If you're open to sharing.
Yeah. So, I think, growing up, there was just some different situations and things that kind of happened that, weren't that great, and that sort of affected me in a few different ways. But the biggest way would probably just be like just depression. Like I've struggled with depression for most of my life, going right back to when I was, like in my early teens, probably even maybe younger than that. And that's always been something that's kind of always been there, and it's kind of like this dark cloud that kind of just hangs around and just doesn't really fuck off. But I think that was like a big drive, like kind of had this emptiness in me for a long time, or this feeling of like what am I doing? Like, who am I? Why am I here? What is this reality? What is this life thing all about? Like, feel like sometimes I used to sort of feel like I'd walked into a movie like once it had already started, and I missed the opening scene. So I was kind of just like, I'd look around and all my friends and all these other people seemed to be so together and like knew what they were doing and knew what they were about. And I'd just be like, did I miss something? Like, I feel like I've come in late. Like, how does everyone have all this life shit just figured out? And so I think I was always just trying to find something that made sense to me and sort of find what gave my life meaning.
Right. And so that was the, trying different jobs to see what was sort of working for you, eventually culminating in the army, 4 years in the army, which you said was great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like all the jobs that I have done have been great. Like all the different experiences that I've had, like when I was doing, construction, that was great for a time. I think that all these experiences you grow from, and you learn a lot about yourself. But really, the army, that was a big one, because it was like it's like going to a parallel universe where there's this whole other set of rules and regulations and culture, and you spend months at a time, or like months of the year, out in the bush, just isolated with other soldiers doing army stuff, and shooting guns and blowing stuff up, and it's a lot of fun, and yeah, I really felt like that when I was in the army. I really felt that sense of belonging and that sense of brotherhood and meaning that I hadn't really experienced before. I had a real strong sense of family, I suppose, during that time, and gave my life a lot of meaning. Looking at it now, if someone asked me now, like, would I join the army again? I would say in this current day and age, no, because I can sort of see now that, I'm a bit kind of anti-government now, I suppose, but there's just a lot of corruption that goes on with all this stuff, and, wars and all these conflicts. We don't get the full story. And I think most people that sign up to join the army or the military have good intentions and, maybe are a little bit too idealistic or a bit too patriotic, and they want to do their duty and serve their country. And the government sometimes swoops in and takes that, sort of pure intention and utilizes it for, financial gain or power. So, but that's another topic. Let's not get into that.
Good old politics. Yeah. And so what kind of, when you talk about depression, like what kind of things I know you were trying different things because like we all do, we read books, and what kind of things did you try to fix it, and what worked, what didn't work in the early days before you ended up finding the nervous system stuff and some of the other things?
Yeah. The early days, I tried antidepressants pretty early on. I think I did maybe 6 months or so on antidepressants, and I found that they kind of made me feel like a bit of a zombie and just a bit numb. Mm-hmm. Possibly helpful.
What do you think that is?
I think that, well, they shut down negative emotion, but they also shut down positive emotion. So you end up just being kind of not really feeling anything. And I feel like they made me a little bit, they affected my personality a little bit. I was taking a lot more risks that I wouldn't normally take during that time. But for a short-term treatment for a couple months, like could be beneficial. I suppose they did kind of help me get out of a little bit of a rut that I was in. But long-term, it's the antidepressant road is not something that that really resonates with me. I didn't find it to be that effective for me. So yeah, tried that. Tried a lot of drinking, a lot of alcohol. That that worked for a time, or at least helped mask the the negative feelings or the depression. Same with different drugs. It worked for a time, but then usually you get the rebound, and it makes you feel even worse in the following days. So yeah, like I really felt that like there wasn't any real answers to be found in drugs or alcohol in terms of dealing with whatever was going on for me in terms of my emotions. And medication, didn't really work for me. Exercise always worked. That was something that I would always come back to. And looking at it now through more of a somatic lens, I guess it's because it gets you out of your head and gets you into your body, which is something that, I'm sure we've all heard a lot. I know I've heard it since I was very young. Like, you just got to get out of your head. You just got to get out of your head. And one way to do that is to get into your body. So, whether it's running or, the gym or boxing or whatever, like that has always been my kind of go-to for a long time, especially when I was in the army. That was basically my therapy was exercise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is that it, or is there more on that list? What came after exercise?
There's definitely more.
There's a few more things.
Well, what happened was I ended up getting a bit of a shoulder injury, and kind of a neck injury just through my time in the army, and that really limited my ability to go to the gym or do boxing or Muay Thai or these sorts of things that I was really relying on to kind of keep my life together and keep everything in check. And when I hurt my shoulder, I found that I wasn't able to have that release like I was getting in the past. So I started just everything started building up, and it kind of culminated in a point where I was working 3 jobs at the time, and just I didn't know how to stop. Like, I didn't know how to have a sort of balanced lifestyle, and I ended up just crashing. I got really sick. I ended up getting meningitis and ended up in hospital, and I don't know how I got it or anything, but I mean, I believe that it was because I was pushing too hard for too long, and my body or the universe or God or whatever you want to call it was like, if you're not going to slow down, like we're going to make you slow down. So that really just smashed me, and took me quite a long time to kind of get back on my feet after that, like energy wise and just physical wise. And I was like, right, well, I have to learn a new way of dealing with all this, this emotional turmoil or whatever's going on inside me. So I had to start looking at other options. So I started doing therapy, counseling with a psychologist. And I found that very helpful. I did quite a lot of that over a couple of years with different therapists. And that was really good to just unpack things and, you know, get stuff off my chest and work through kind of like the more narrative sort of storyline that we have in our head, the stories that we tell ourselves every day about who we are and, you know, what we identify as. So that was quite helpful. But after a certain point, it kind of just got to be like going to speak to someone and just talking about your problems, and you'd feel a little bit of relief, but nothing was really changing, which I think is an issue a lot of people run into. I think talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy is absolutely fantastic, but it's not the full story. There needs to be an element of body awareness and embodiment and dealing with the emotions and the feelings that are coming up in the body. If you're going into a rage every time you get in your car and somebody beeps their horn at you, and you see red, I mean, you can talk about that all day, about why that is, and, you know, why this person, you know, as soon as the light goes green, why they should accelerate within 1 second. And if they don't, like, you know, you can talk about all this stuff, but if you're not dealing with the actual energy that's in the body, you're kind of selling yourself short. Like, it needs to be, in my opinion, you need to address it from both angles. And that's where a lot of the more body-based stuff has come in for me. Yeah. So I think that, you know, like, I started with stuff like yoga. That was kind of the sort of introduction was, you know, and I'm terrible at yoga. Like, that's why I like it, because I'm so bad at it. Like, I can go there and I'm like the Tin Man. I'm not flexible at all. And it's kind of a humbling experience for me. But it's, you know, that's not what yoga's about. It's about, you know, trying to find your edge or find your stretch or your little moment with your body and with what you're feeling. And can you feel this uncomfortable sensation, and can you sit with it, and can you just allow it? And so that was kind of like the entry point. And then, I mean, you know, as you know sort of my story, it kind of progressed from there into different things were sort of happening or sort of in the spaces around me. People were experimenting with magic mushrooms and different psychedelics and things like that. And I started getting sort of involved in that a little bit as well. Yeah. Which was a double-edged sword, I would say. Yeah. At the time, to put it lightly.
I mean, that's like most things, I suppose, but psychedelics and plant medicine especially. So, because I think around that time we'd be, I can't remember. I mean, we were taking, you know, drinking and partying together when we were like 18, 19. But this is where I'm 33, 32. And we, I don't know where it started. I don't even know what year I remember drinking ayahuasca in 2018 in Melbourne with Dad. And then I went back to Thailand after that, and then came back to Australia in 2020, I think. Yeah, I think it was then. And then you might have had something, San Pedro, I think, at some point while I was gone. And then we came back, and then we drank a few times on a farm.
Yeah,
which was and that was just after I'd got into some of the embodiment stuff, and you were still sort of on the fence with it and more like doing yoga and qigong, I think.
Yep.
You were kind of doing a bunch of that stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. I can't remember the exact time frames, but yeah, I sort of hadn't done anything because obviously, you know, being in the army, like, you know, I didn't even really drink much when I was in the army, like just complete, you know, straight edge, as we used to say. But yeah, so there was kind of like, I think the first thing I did was, the San Pedro cactus. I did a ceremony with that, and that was quite beneficial. Yeah, like I did it with a group of people out on the farm in kind of rural New South Wales, as you know, and it kind of helped me to learn to trust people again, because up until that point, I'd sort of since getting out of the army, like sort of, I don't know, I've become a bit antisocial and had a hard time just being around people that I didn't know really well. And I, you know, probably heaps of reasons for it, but yeah, so that was a good experience. And then I remember you came back over to Australia, and I think, we had had one or two times after that where we did, I think the San Pedro cactus again. And from what I remember, there was one day in particular that was quite emotional. I think you just you might not want to talk about this.
No, let's go ahead. I was going to bring it up anyway. Now that we're there,
I think you had just broken up with your girlfriend at the time, and I was sort of realizing that the relationship that I was in, which was a 5-year relationship, was coming to an end. And I remember we were just kind of bouncing off each other, and just there was a lot of tears, and there was a lot of heartfelt conversations, and it was really good. Yeah, it's an interesting.
I remember. I think we were sitting around, we were like a little fire. There's 5 or 6 of us there, and you were playing guitar, and I don't know. I just started to feel really sad. So yeah, I'd just broken up with my girlfriend in Thailand, 4 years. This girl in Thailand. I was like, I think I'll just drink San Pedro the day after, because obviously I'm really sad and this will just move it quicker is my thinking, which is exactly what happened. Because you were playing guitar. I went for a walk somewhere because I could just feel the sad. I just needed to cry. And so I'm just crying over near this fence. And then you and another dude start walking over, you playing the guitar. And I remember you playing this like happy reggae song. And then you got close. And then I think you saw me that I was crying. And then you burst into tears because it's like that's what happens in these ceremonies with plant medicine it's like things resonate. So if someone else is having all this grief, the sadness come up, and there's sadness in another person, it's like they resonate like guitar strings, and it brings it up, and then this other person takes them into their stuff. And after that, I mean, there was anger too. I remember you screaming at the top of your lungs on top of this hill. That was a fantastic day, man.
It was a good day. Yeah, got really shifted some emotion that day for sure. Yeah, but like I think we had those experiences, and then during that time, I feel like I kind of went a little bit off the rails. Like when I separated with my partner at the time, I started smoking a lot of pot, and just was a bit crazy. Like just the way I was living my life, I sort of didn't really have any routine or I was just kind of on this runaway train. Just it's kind of a bit out of control, and I think I was at that same time doing things like the cactus, and it probably wasn't the best time for me to be doing that sort of stuff in hindsight, and that kind of culminated in me doing an ayahuasca ceremony that really just I don't even know what to say about it. Just blew the doors off, so to speak. It was just like a really, really intense experience that took me a very long time to kind of come to terms with just sort of what had happened. And I don't know. It was just it was too much for me. I didn't have if you want to speak in more of a somatic experiencing kind of language, like I didn't have the capacity to really hold that kind of energy in my body, and it just sort of lost it.
Are you open to sharing? Would you be up for sharing a bit more about what happened at the ceremony?
Sure. So did a ceremony in Australia. I think there was maybe 20 people there or something like that, and I'd probably, like most other people, heard about ayahuasca as a treatment for mental health issues or depression. And at this point in my life, I was trying a lot of different things and just trying to find some relief. So I was like, oh well, I'll give it a go, I suppose. And so I went along, and the setting wasn't great. It was outside on a farm at night, and kind of like a thunderstorm was rolling through over the sort of hills and the mountains as we were starting, and it was a bit windy and a bit cold, and just, I don't know, that it wasn't really like a safe feeling, sort of comfortable environment. But I was like, oh well, we'll crack on, and so I don't know. They gave me the drink, and I had it, and within must have been about 10 minutes, I don't know what happened. I just started freaking out. I got stuck in this thought loop. I was just saying like, where am I? Like, I feel sick. Like, what the fuck's going on? Does everyone else feel like this? Like, saying it is like more like yelling it, I suppose, or saying it very loudly.
Screaming it.
Caused a scene essentially, like, and was very disruptive to everyone else, which, you know, I do feel bad about, but it's sort of like, well, you know, it was kind of like a recipe for disaster, like just the way my headspace at that time and then that setting kind of came together, and then the storm started picking up, and I just kind of just had a bit of a meltdown. And because I didn't know what was going on, and eventually someone sort of, you know, took me inside, and within being inside for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I was like, oh, like I feel all right. Once I was out of the elements, I felt okay, but just kind of got thrown into this sort of existential crisis, thinking about, you know, concepts of timelessness and infinity and existence and all this kind of pretty kind of heavy sort of stuff. And it was just too much for me at that time. And I just sort of, didn't know how to deal with it. So I kind of flew too close to the sun and caught on fire.
But then found like a fire hydrant on the way back from the sun and cooled yourself off before you burnt to a crisp.
Yeah, I didn't burn to a crisp. No, I did not burn to a crisp. But
not yet. Anyway. Maybe you're still burning inside. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? That experience though was, I mean, life-changing in the way that like a car crash would be life-changing. Like it was quite traumatic in some ways. And that sort of really pushed me to really have a good hard look at myself and my behavior and how I was living and what I was living for. So that was a couple of years ago now, and I would say that, you know, it was a positive thing. Like good has come out of it. It really forced me to look at myself and go through a bit of a sort of dark night of the soul period, and integrate a lot of parts of myself and things that I'd been hiding from. But it wasn't fucking easy. Like it was really, really tough. And I was lucky that I had people like yourself and some other friends around who had a bit of experience with these sorts of, psychedelics and these kinds of different states, who were able to help me through it and help me kind of find that grounding again. And one of the big pieces that kind of helped that was somatic work, somatic experiencing, or, you know, body-based kind of therapy. Alongside also, I was also still doing cognitive behavioral therapy, but the real kind of the real sort of benefit came from the somatic stuff for sure. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I remember, I think it was 2020 when I got into it, that stuff, the somatic nervous system stuff. And then that ceremony was, I think, October or November that year. And so I'd been raving about it all year to anyone who would listen. If you got to try this thing, it's incredible. It's like I'd meditated for a long time. I'd done all kinds, you know, different, it's maybe slightly different things to you, but, you know, like books and courses and therapy and coaching and breath work, all kinds of different things. And, you know, they all had their benefits, their sort of advantages, but finding this nervous system stuff was like, oh my God, this is what I've been searching for this whole time. To me, it felt like this is what everything else is trying to do. It's just doing it better. It's just pulling it all together into one really powerful thing. So I'd been talking about it, raving about it, until some people are probably sick of me talking about it. I'm like, shut the hell up, John. And so I've been telling you about it for a long time, and you're like, oh, sounds cool, man. Yeah. But you weren't that interested until I think it was that ceremony where I think that's when it happened. Right? It was after that you were looking for better. You're like, oh, whatever I'm doing right now is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed like whatever you'd been doing, like we need something more. There's another piece here that I'm not getting. And then I think it was around that time, like you said, when you got into it yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. There was something missing from the approach that I had. And yeah, I did a, can I say what course I did, or is that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. don't know the rules of these podcast things. I did a course with Irene Lyon, who has an online course that I did that went for, I'm not sure how long it was, maybe a few months or something. And I just worked through it at my own pace, and it was deceptively simple. I guess whether you're doing whatever kind of school of thought you're doing, whether it's Peter Levine or like, it's all kind of under the umbrella of somatic work or somatic experiencing. It's these ideas of, coming into your body, grounding, feeling the ground underneath you, which sounds deceptively simple, but it's surprising the effect it has. Orienting to the safety in your environment, working with your adrenal system, working with your kidneys, and doing. I got a lot out of a specific exercise where it's learning to work with your kidneys and get them to drop. So get them to come out of that holding pattern or that bracing and kind of relax a bit. And I remember the first time I got that to click, I got this, it felt like I, sat down in a warm bath or something. Like it was this really, it was really this strong visceral feeling of like, oh, like just, wow, something is just like let go. It's, and I still get that now when I do it. It's just the system is just letting out, like a sigh of relief. Like, oh, okay, we can relax. We're safe. Like we can chill. We can, kick back. So, like that course and just, the work of Peter Levine and just, I had a lot of conversations with yourself because by that point you were well into all this stuff, and you'd been like a little parrot on my shoulder for about probably 18 months saying, and it's funny because I do the same thing now to people. Like I would always be saying, oh, I got this issue. I just don't know. I don't know how to get at this issue. And you'd be like, do the somatic course, and now I find that I say that to people that someone will be talking about something like, you should really look into like, like some somatic work. It's kind of funny the way it works out, but it was, it was great because you'd already kind of gone into that space and explored it a lot. So I was able to bounce ideas off you and say like, hey, like I'm trying to work with this, orienting to the safety thing, or I'm trying to work with, this Feldenkrais stuff or whatever it might be. And you'd be like, oh yeah. I spent a lot of time doing that. You should try this or give this a go. So that was really awesome, to have that. But yeah, for me, it was a game changer. It really helped me to just come back to the body and just get out of my head, get out of these stories. And it's something that I kind of use pretty much all the time, every day. Just the framework of it, of these ideas about having a capacity in your nervous system, like especially in today's world, there's all this talk about, having these big breakthrough cathartic experiences like, plant medicine or another one is Wim Hof breath work or holotropic breath work, where you essentially hyperventilate for, an hour and you go into these altered states or non-ordinary states of consciousness and have, the tears and all this stuff come out. And, there's a place for that, sure. But sometimes if the system's not ready for it, another example would be like a Vipassana silent meditation retreat. There's plenty of stories, if you look for them online, of people going and doing a 10-day retreat, never really meditated before or had much exposure to that stuff. And all their demons come up, all these skeletons come out of their closet at once and they can't handle it. And they have, a psychotic break, or they have a break from reality. And like it happens, it might not be common, but it's something to be aware of. And, I'd always thought, oh yeah, well that's just, par for the course sort of thing. That's just what you go through. And, maybe it is, but maybe there's a more gentle way to work with the system so that you don't have to go through that and you can do it step by step in a gradual way and still get the results without, blowing your head off.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'd meditated for 10 years before I stumbled across this nervous system stuff. And I'd had a few like cool experiences with psychedelics and meditation, going kind of to some, dropping into some sublime, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, states. And they were nice and stuff, but they didn't really change me that much. I think outside of that, it was nice at the time. There was an afterglow for a few days or weeks, and then it was just back to life as normal. It was very difficult to pull some of that wisdom or insight back into the day-to-day. This is after meditating for 10 years, almost daily, 20 minutes a day, not every day for 10 years straight, but very, very close. I'd say 90% or more. And then the somatic stuff, within like 2 weeks or a week, I can't remember what it was, like just that orienting thing, feeling the ground, seeing what's around me, noticing the breath, putting it together into one thing. Like within days, like I realized how angry I was about something, and also how sad, just because of some stuff that was going on at the time. And like I'd been meditating every day, around that time as well, and yet I hadn't done that. It's like somehow, I don't know if everyone does this, but I imagine in the Western culture, we're so good at disconnecting from the body, from emotion, from experience. We're so good at it, we don't even know we're doing it. Because I didn't think I was doing it for the longest time. I was like, I'm a pretty chill dude. I get this. I'd have a fight with my girlfriend at the time, and she'd be angry about something, and I'd just be taking deep breaths, thinking I'm like a Zen monk. I'm super calm and super mature. And in retrospect, I was totally shut down and disconnected from what was going on inside me. And it wasn't meditation that taught me that. It was this nervous system stuff and understanding fight and flight and freeze. And, it just, it changed everything. If you want to learn more about the somatics, the nervous system stuff, how to work with the fight and flight response, and how to make meditation and all the other stuff relevant, go to rageheart.co and sign up for the Daily Rage, the daily email newsletter on the homepage there. That's Rageheart, like Braveheart, but rageheart.co. And now, like, I don't really meditate anymore. If I do, if I just drop in, I don't usually do it even with my eyes shut now. But if I do, occasionally I might do it or do some chanting or something, but it's all now informed by all those techniques from the somatics and the nervous system, where it's like, if I'm going to chant or I'm going to meditate, I'm going to make sure I'm feeling my body, feeling the ground, noticing the breath, putting it like all at the same time. Otherwise, there's this tendency for, the mind goes quiet, but it might be not because the body's gone quiet, but because I've disconnected from the body. So there's this, it's very like subtle and tricky. And I think it can happen without people even realizing what's going on. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting sort of topic as well, and something I think about a lot, because I love the somatic approach, but I also love meditation, and it's trying to walk that line between meditating, or like traditional meditation, and not disassociating and not disconnecting, which is actually pretty tricky. And I think that, like you said, you meditate with your eyes open. I think that is definitely helpful, because when you shut your eyes, you can kind of very easily disconnect from the body. I find different types of meditation probably lead more to that. Like if you're shutting your eyes and you're doing purely focusing on the breath as an object of awareness, that can sometimes, you get kind of tunnel vision on the breath, but you don't really feel the body. I've kind of been getting into meditation a bit more lately. It's a constant sort of something to be aware of, like, but having that sort of background or that basic knowledge of how the nervous system works with the sympathetic and parasympathetic and fight, flight, freeze, all that stuff, you can kind of get a bit of a sense. It's like, oh, I'm a little bit too calm. Like there's some shit going on. Maybe I should be feeling something, like, because, like it's nice. It's nice to sit there and meditate for half an hour, and just, zen out in this state of bliss. Like, and when you do it for a while, I know for myself, if I meditate for half an hour, an hour, I can get into like a really nice state of relaxation, or whatever you want to call it. And the system feels calmed down. Everything feels relaxed. I feel like I am dropping into that, that sort of rest and digest part of my nervous system. But if you're doing that all the time and you're not also getting the stuff that's in there, that's stored in there, out, or working through it, that's where it becomes a bypass, or it can become a bypass. So I think that you really need both. And I think at the moment I'm in a bit of a sort of phase where I'm kind of looking into non-duality and, self-inquiry and those sorts of things, quite a lot. And I can feel sometimes this little bit of like, oh, got to be careful. Like, I don't want to resist anything. And that's why the sort of meditation that I really like to do these days is more of just an allowing. So Adyashanti talks about it. You sit there, you focus on being still, you commit to being still. The second commitment is just allowing whatever comes up to come up, whether it's emotion, fear, anger. You're basically just sitting with yourself and being like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, and sometimes things come up, sometimes they don't. And then I think if you take that approach of just, allowing, things that need to come up will come up. You don't need to force them to come up. You don't need to try and dig them out. They'll come up when they're ready. It's like Ram Dass says, like, a snake can only shed its skin, like, when it's ready to shed its skin. Like, you can't go up to a snake and peel the skin off. It's not going to work. It's only going to come off when it's ready. And I know in the past I've had a tendency to want to be like, no, like, I want to do it all and I want to do it all now. And it's like, no, you just got to relax. It'll happen when it wants to happen.
I mean, it's funny, man. I got people going through rage art at the moment, and one of them is quite. There's a few people who wish it was faster. It's like, because I'm making people take, a day. The rage art, for people who don't know, is a course that will teaches you how to do all this nervous system stuff, somatic stuff, and I've set it up so you can only do one lesson a day. Which to me, I think, is important because it slows things down. It means people can't rush ahead and do more than they're really ready for, because it can be very subtle as well. And so it's this culture, I think, that we have, like, in the West, where it's all about getting things done, being productive, moving quickly, moving fast. And if we can't do that or don't do that, it makes us anxious. We feel like we're not doing it properly or not getting it done or something along those lines. And like, one thing I've learned, I don't know if you've got this too, but it's been like a learning to slow down. It doesn't mean always going slow, but it means learning to really trust the body, and a sense of rushing, because rushing really brings us into that fight or flight or into sympathetic. The more we, create that kind of energy unnecessarily, I think the more it gets in the way of this kind of process. It really is a process of not rushing, of not trying to get anywhere with it, of just doing the different practices. And like you said, it's almost like because the mind wants to be like, oh, it should happen now. Like, I'm going to fix this thing now or in 2 weeks. But when working with the body, it's more like the body has its own schedule. Like, you can have all your ideas about when something should happen or clear, but at the end of the day, the body will just do it when it's ready to do it. And all you can do is just create the right environment for stuff to start to move.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that whole thing about going fast, it's like, just reminds you of that classic saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And it's so true. It applies not just to somatic work, but it applies to a lot of things. Everything. Whenever you're running late and you're like, oh, and you're trying to go fast, and then you knock a cup over and it smashes or something, and you're like, shit. But if you just slow down, everything's okay. So yeah, absolutely, man. You can't rush it. And another thing that I'm learning is that there's so many different approaches to, working with the body or the minds or the psyche, or, however you want to conceptualize it. And I think that, different approaches work for different people at different times in their life, like for me, like, this somatic stuff, if somebody gave this to me when I was, 16, 17, it wouldn't have clicked. It may have, but I don't think so for me. Like, I think that you really need to be ready for it. And it's like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it's, life is kind of like that. When you're kind of ready for something to happen or ready for that next step, life has a funny way of bringing these people or these ideas into your kind of world so that you can, take that next step.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I think my dad sent me like an article about somatic, someone working on like a car accident with a somatic therapist. And I read it and was like, oh, it's just like this other thing I've read, the presence process. And that was as far as it went. And that must have been like, man, 2016. So like
wow.
4 or 5 years before I got into the more the nervous system somatic stuff properly. And I just, when you said that, I'm like, man, imagine if I'd gotten, maybe that was the universe being like, come on, man, you should get into this thing. You should check it out. And I'm like, no, I got my book's better than that. But really looking back, yeah, this nervous system thing's way better than that book. So I would not recommend that book unless it's, right for your stage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is great. It is great work. Definitely, I think it's great for people that have any kind of repressed anger, in particular. Like, I know that for me, prior to joining the army, I had a lot of anger, and in a way, the army, just that experience was kind of like anger work, because you learn to tap into your anger and aggression and learn how to channel it and feel it and not be ashamed of it or scared of it. But then, post army, it's like, all right, well, how can I do this in a way that is, appropriate and not, not snapping at people or not being overly direct or overly, assertive and those sorts of things. And I think that that's where the somatic work really shines, because a lot of people have this rage or this pain or this anger inside them, usually because of stuff that happened when they were quite young. And, they've done the talking, they've done maybe the meditation or, these different things, but that anger's there. And sometimes they're not even aware of how fucking angry they actually are inside. And then when you start doing this work, sometimes you might be sitting there and then you're just like, wow, I'm really fucking pissed off right now. Like, I'm furious. And it's like that shit is in there, whether you know it or not. Like, I think it's a part of life. And our society these days is quite sterile. Like, we don't really have many ways to move that energy because it's not socially acceptable to get angry. I mean, I guess, people go to the gym or they maybe like hit a punching bag or something, but there's a way to work with that anger in a way that is safe for your system as well, so you don't get overwhelmed. Because I could be wrong, but I feel like that was a big thing for you, right? Like learning how to work with anger.
It's probably been one of the main parts of my journey. Probably the most obvious ones so far was aggression coming through, where the first time it happened was after a little weekend retreat that I did. And then I went to talk to like a one-on-one guy I was working with on this stuff. And I've told you this story, but like we tracked this, I think I might have told it before on one of the other interviews, but tracking this sensation up through the chest, and then it gradually morphs in as the thing comes up, the breath increases, and then it becomes growls. And, other times it would come up and I'm like prowling around my room like I'm a fucking tiger. And it felt so right. It's ridiculous, from another perspective, but in the moment it was like, this is just what I want to do. This is following my impulse. This is so embodied. This is just what wants to happen, and to the point where I'd be growling. I'd be trying to rip this towel in half. The kind of energy that's like, if this was directed at a person, it's the kind of energy that would want to kill. And it's like, this isn't coming from nowhere. This is energy. This is the fight response, the energy behind the fight response that's been in my body for who knows how long. And this is, instead of putting it into a person or kids, I don't have kids, but if I had kids, I might yell at them, right? Instead of putting it into the people around me or the environment, with these tools, I can put it into a towel, or I can put it, I know how to work with it somatically, by acting it out. And it's been amazing, dude. Absolutely amazing. And then as that happens, as the aggression unblocks, it's like the fire for life to take action and chase goals and just be whoever I want to be, protect myself, have boundaries, all of that. All of that comes from this energy.
Yeah, because it's like if you shut that down, if you're shutting down that kind of healthy aggression, it's like, how can you defend your own boundaries? How can you assert who you want to be in the world? People will just, can sometimes just walk all over you if you are like there's this idea about being nice, like, oh, like just be nice. You should be a nice person. And it's like, yeah, okay. But like, I mean, even Jordan Peterson talks about this. Like if someone is just nice, just because they think they should be nice, they're not really nice. Like if you are nice, but you have no capability to not be nice, like it's like, are you really nice, or are you just don't have any other options? You don't, you're just being,
weak.
Being weak, or letting people walk all over you, and not maintaining healthy relationships and healthy boundaries because you don't know how to, or you don't feel like you have the agency to do that. I think it's much more healthy to have a little bit of that, fire in you, but then to rein it in and to be kind to people. And, like I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like I'm not saying don't be nice, but I'm just saying that like you need to have that fire and that strength within yourself, so that if somebody is, confronting you, there's a conflict, you need to defend yourself. It might be something as simple as someone just trying to manipulate you, or you're in a relationship that's toxic and it's like maybe you need to stand up to someone. If you don't have that kind of energy or that agency or whatever you want to call it within yourself, how are you gonna have healthy boundaries? Like it's almost impossible. And people will walk all over you if you just think, I just need to be nice. Like, they're just having a bad day. It's like maybe they are, but you end up being a martyr in your own life.
Yeah. I get so many stories around that kind of a thing. But yeah, it's like when people to me now, anger is a sign. Usually, sometimes if I'm angry, I think about it differently. Like if I'm starting to feel pissed off when I'm around people, sometimes it's because someone's messing with me and my body's picking up on it before my mind is. And I'll be like, I'm just projecting. All right. Yeah, I need to be a nice guy. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be just, nice, but why can't I just be friendly? What's going on? And then it'll be like, the last year or two since doing all this nervous system stuff, it'll be like, no, I see what's going on. They're fiddling, It's like usually like a little manipulation, because it's not usually outright physical violence for most of the time, at least in where we live. It's so it's going to be emotional violence, you could say, emotional abuse, manipulation, people trying to fuck with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even know they're doing it. Maybe on the surface they're not consciously recognizing it, but deep down, I think you pointed out, sometimes they'll end up with a cheeky smile on their face. Like on some level, they know exactly what they're doing, but the body will pick up on it before the mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how that sort of works. Yeah, but definitely, I would definitely recommend this approach. It's worked for me, and not to say that I'm, walking around every day, and like birds are flying up and landing on my shoulder, and there's rainbows in the sky, and life's hard. Like I have good days, have bad days, shit happens, but it's much easier now having the somatic tools and different meditation tools, but particularly somatic stuff, to kind of check in with myself and be like, okay, like I'm getting a bit caught in my head with this idea or this story, or going down some rabbit hole about God knows what. It's like, let's just come back to the body and let's just be here now. And that's, I think if there was one thing that I've found since I've been alive that kind of sums up all the reading and everything that I've learned, it's Be Here Now by Ram Dass. Just be here now. It always comes back to that. It always comes back to that. It's like, can you be in this present moment? Can you be really present with everything that's going on within you and, on the outside of you, your feelings, your thoughts? Like, can you be? And we live in a culture of doing, not being. And I think part of the reason that we're seeing this epidemic of, mental health issues and ADHD and all these disorders and, all these things just skyrocketing is, I feel like our whole society, whether, especially in the West, but probably, most places in the world, our whole society just feels to me like it's just become sick. Like we're so trapped in these, virtual worlds of social media and, porn and movies and just all this illusion. And we're disconnected from what's happening in front of us. We're worried about what Trump's doing or what's happening, politically in some part of the world that we've never even been to. And, it's fine to be concerned about things, but like, I don't know. These days I just try and deal with what's in front of me, because I've kind of been down a lot of those roads and a lot of those rabbit holes about, different ideas and conspiracies and stuff. And they don't really lead anywhere. Like, it always comes back to, okay, well, what can I do about it? Well, I can just be me, be authentic and be here now.
And just be here now. It's funny because that's that's meditation for you. That's somatics. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think to me, like where somatics really works well is because meditation is the same thing in a way. Like it's being learning to be present in your body when it's done properly, I think. But often people would say, get out of your head, John. When they said it to you, like get out of your head, get into your body kind of thing. And like, yeah, I can exercise, but like as a general rule, I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, I'm in my body. Like, what are you talking about? Whereas it was like the meditation, at least the way I learned it, from the teachers I learned it from, it didn't show me that. Whereas the somatics, feel the ground, look around, notice your breath, do this slow, gentle movement. All of a sudden it was like, oh, this is what they mean to be in the body or to be here now. It's not about zooming off into the clouds in a meditation. It's about being fully present, fully embodied in the entire human experience. And I know for me, like the nervous system stuff was like, here's just some tools. Like it's the same thing everyone else is trying to say. We've just got a bit of a better understanding of what works.
Right. And there's no woo-woo bullshit with it either. Like it's like, here's the science. This is how the nervous system works. This is how the parasympathetic system works. Like if you do this and apply this method, like this is the result you'll get. You don't have to believe in any kind of concept. You don't have to believe in any sort of, new age idea or anything to do with, like anything. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off engaging in self-work, is that they think, oh, maybe I need to, really look into myself, when they do a Google search and they get some thing about crystal healing or, and I mean, maybe there's a place for that, but I think a lot of people just get turned off. They're like, oh, this is all just, hippie shit. Like it's the somatic stuff. There's no concept that you have to believe in, because you're just working with your direct experience.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no story. It kind of like rules out the story. Instead of guys to think, I got to figure out what happened to me, figure out, like analyze and dig and journal and talk about the past. And then, I mean, this way is just like, none of that matters. All that matters is what's here right now. And the more I'm here, the more stuff from the past will show up in the here and now. Life does a brilliant job of stirring it up. And even just being here, creating space, things just start to pop, and it's not even about the story. It's not about knowing where it came from. It's just about feeling it. If I'm willing to feel it, then it's gone. It's like, oh, see ya. Yeah. I don't even have to know what it was.
That's the beauty of it. You don't have to remember it. Like something maybe did happen to you when you were young, but you can go on this wild goose chase of trying to, uncover repressed memories or whatever. And, there's a place for that, sure. But the beauty of this work is that you don't really have to remember it.
There we go. I reckon that's a fine note to end on. Or be here now. I was like, should we end here? No, let's keep going for a second. But we can wrap it up here. Right on 1 hour. Look at that. Yeah, fancy perfect stuff. So usually I would say to people, first I say thank you for coming on and talking about your story. So thank you.
No worries.
You don't have anywhere to, you're not promoting anything at the moment. You said you might have a YouTube channel one day. I don't know if you want to share your email address or a way for people to reach out to you if they ever wanted to chat to you. Or,
sure. Yeah. I don't really. I'm not on social media. I'm not on Facebook or Instagram, or I don't really have a platform or a website or anything like that. I'm a musician, so one day I probably will make a YouTube channel or something and put some of my music up. But at this point, there's no real self promotion. I'm not selling anything. If people did want to get in touch with me, you can email me at jack.mcintyre@live.com.au. I'd be very surprised if somebody emails me, but you're more than welcome to.
Well, I haven't launched yet, so like I'll probably get like 3 listeners at first, or 5 or 20 or whatever. But maybe in a few years when I've got 10 million, you might get hit with a few emails.
And I would say, if there is anyone that does listen to this that has, especially been in the military, and wants to talk about anything to do with that, because that's sort of the direction that I see myself heading in the future, is doing support work with veterans, and just trying to just be a mate, essentially, and just, I think lived experience goes a long way. So, if anyone ever wants to talk about anything to do with that, or challenging experiences on psychedelics and stuff, I'm always open to it.
Fantastic. Well, I'll have a link, or might be a link, on the show notes at rageheart.co. So people can go there and check that out, or probably just rewind. That's probably easier, and just type it in. That's probably the simplest thing they could do. But anyway, thank you again, Jack. Feels weird to be interviewing you and being all professional. Thank you, Jack. But thank you. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Maybe we'll do it again in another year or something. Have a little catch up.
Yeah, see what's changed.
Oh, shit. You just woke the beast. Time to cue that scary music. Run! Actually, wait. Oh, the beast isn't awake. Not yet, anyway. It's snoring away while you meditate, make endless lists of what you're grateful for, scribble in your $49 Moleskine journal, practice stoicism, and drink 17 cups of coffee, all at the same time, and work that super strict routine that makes you desperate to cartwheel out of a 58th floor window screaming the lyrics to Mad World. In other words, your beast sleeps while you apply Band-Aids to your mind. Yep. Band-Aids, glorified Band-Aids. Helpful, sure, at least in the short term, just like aspirin, alcohol, or a heroin addiction that would make Kurt Cobain proud. But in the long term, hell no. That's what the Daily Rage stomps in. In just 5 minutes a day, you will, all 7.3 minutes actually, you'll ditch the usual self-help Band-Aids for something that attacks the root problem of nervous system dysregulation instead of symptoms like most everything else. That's how you unleash the beast inside you, along with all the vitality, the energy, the full-blooded, healthy aggression that comes with it. And the next time someone tells you to fuck off, you just look them calmly in the eye and smile. That's the first few paragraphs of the very first email in the Daily Rage, in the daily email newsletter for Rageheart. If you'd like to learn more about this, or read the rest of the email and find out more about this beast thing and the nervous system way of working with the self, ourselves, go to rageheart.co and sign up for the daily email newsletter on the homepage. That's Rageheart, like Braveheart, but rageheart.co.